Alrighty, I think we are all set up, but hi everyone who's tuning in who may have just gotten a notification that we're live now on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is Cayla Harris. I am a state political reporter for the Times-Union. If you've been following this series, you've seen me 2 or 3 times before, I can't remember. But I am here today to talk about the latest in state politics and whatnot. So just to start off, again, as people are tuning in and whatnot, please drop comments on Twitter, on Facebook, whatnot, and I will do my best to answer them. Again, my specialty is state politics. You should definitely check out our website if you have, I mean, I figure you know about our website if you're on this, but timesunion.com, and we have a special landing page for our coronavirus coverage at timesunion.com/coronavirus. And then on a personal note, you should definitely also follow our political blog, which is called Capital Confidential. We have a newsletter every day that we send out the latest news about the state. So I guess I will start today with some updates and we'll wait for some questions to come in. So we just finished up Governor Cuomo's briefing today. Obviously, he has held one every day since I believe March 1st, pretty much every day, media availability every day. Today, hospitalizations are down, deaths are about the same they were yesterday, but they've been under 100 for the past few days, so that is good news. Overall, we've had more than 23,000 confirmed deaths that are related to the coronavirus and a little more than 360,000 confirmed cases overall. But numbers are definitely on the downward trend. Long Island began reopening today. The Hudson Valley was yesterday. So New York City is the only region of New York that has yet to reopen, but they are on track to do that in early June. So meanwhile, also playing in the background of my computer right now is the state legislature, which is in session today for the first time in more than, or just about 2 months, a little less than 2 months. The last time they were there was to pass the budget in early April. But now we are back to pass a slate of coronavirus bills. It's a lot of coronavirus relief bills. There's some stuff in there about rent and about utilities, some other items. Oops, just getting a notification. But some other items about schools getting aid, even if they don't open for 180 days in a year, some of that other good stuff. And then also just a bit ago, anyone who, part of my beat also is the Child Victims Act, and the state Senate just a bit ago passed a bill that would extend that look back window under the Child Victims Act to August of 2021. That bill was initially set to expire this August, then it was extended to January, and so now the state Senate just approved a bill that would extend it all the way to next August. And I don't know where the assembly's at with that bill. They might be taking it up since the last time I checked, but they're expected to pass it later this afternoon. And then the outstanding question is whether Governor Cuomo will sign it. So that is what's going on at the moment. And we have a question. Okay. Can you talk about how the two houses are conducting their business? Are they in Albany or are they virtual? That is a great question. So mostly they're virtual. There are a couple of people back in Albany, as usual. There are people who are in the room. There's a live stream going on, by the way, where if you're interested in this stuff and you want to watch the Senate and the Assembly debate and talk about these bills, you can go check them out on their respective websites. If you just Google like New York Senate and New York Assembly live stream or something like that, it will definitely come up. So there are a handful of people in Albany. Some people from downstate came back up to talk. I know I was just chatting with Brad Hoylman, who is the sponsor of that Child Victims Act bill that I mentioned. And he's back in Albany today. He's speaking on a couple of things. But by and large, they are meeting virtually, the Assembly especially because it has so many members. They are meeting via Zoom. I do believe it is Zoom and not another conferencing platform. But yeah, so they are all meeting online. They're discussing the bills, and this is totally unprecedented. This has never happened before, and yeah, it's super interesting to watch to see how all of these debates are going on Zoom, and with just a couple of people in the room. You would see normally if they were debating 30 plus bills, which is what's on both of their agendas today, you would see way more people packed into the chambers. You would see spirited debate, that sort of thing. And now it's kind of just a couple of people at a time. and a couple people speaking at once, some debate, but not as much as usual. Most of these bills that have gone through in the Senate, which is moving a lot faster than the Assembly is today, most of these bills have passed unanimously or maybe with one or two no votes. But by and large, they're going through with approval because they just can't have that many people talking and that many people in a room. So I'm sure if there were any discussions about these bills or any concerns about them, they were discussed via Zoom in conference and not in the chamber itself. So yeah, part in person, part virtual, but mostly virtual, especially when it comes to the Assembly. So yeah, like I said, 30 plus bills today. The Senate, I believe, has 34. I want to say the Assembly has 32, but I could be off slightly. And yeah, by and large, these are coronavirus bills. They're relief bills. Like I mentioned, there's been calls for rent relief and that sort of thing. One of the bills that's being taken up today is a version of that. It's not exactly a rent freeze, but it is basically you would get the state government with money from the federal government would give vouchers to landlords whose tenants can't pay rent. So it's not exactly a freeze, but it's like helping certain people who can't pay their rent, and that would cost about $100 million. But again, they're depending on that money from Washington because the governor has repeatedly stressed that if the state doesn't get help from Washington, if there are no federal funds, then there will be massive cuts just across the board. And he kind of warned the legislature, actually not even kind of, he did explicitly warn the legislature earlier this week that if there wasn't really any room to pass bills that will cost the state money just because the state doesn't have any money to spend right now. Another question. Do you have any information on dental offices? Hygienists are concerned as some offices in Albany are working doing elective dental, even though that's not allowed yet. Any info on what reprimands these offices will face for not following Governor Cuomo's mandates? That's a great question, and I'm sorry that I don't have more information on it. I actually, in looking at our budget this morning, I actually did see a story on that, not written by me, but I do believe someone is working on that. But as far as the penalties for not following the mandates, it depends. So it first of all depends if the state's even aware that some of these things are not happening as they're supposed to. It's if they want to enforce it. Oftentimes these decisions are left up to the local governments or the local law enforcement, and that will vary based on the county, based on the region. And if any person who works in that area, or if you are someone who's just passing by and you're concerned about the operations, you can definitely call your local law enforcement or also report it to the state. I do believe that the state has a little form on their website where you can report employers who are not following the necessary guidelines laid out by the state. So yeah, I apologize that I don't have more information on that, but I would expect dental offices to reopen relatively soon on the closer end of the spectrum, whereas we're looking at like big sporting events and with audiences and theater events or whatever, those will happen about a month out or something like that if numbers stay okay. Dental offices will probably be on the sooner side of that. Veterinarians' offices just opened across the state yesterday, so instead of just emergency procedures, like those are opening now for regular services as well. So I would imagine dental offices are close behind. Yeah, so remember that you can drop comments on Facebook and on Twitter and on YouTube. I was asked to stress that, so I'm stressing that. But if you're just tuning in, my name is Cayla Harris. I am a state government reporter for the Times Union, and I'm answering some questions today about the legislature being back in session this week for the first time in about 2 months, and some of the things they're taking up, and also Governor Cuomo and anything else related to state politics and the coronavirus. So feel free to drop questions and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Let's see what else is going on today. So, question. What does the legislature want to see before end of session this year? See accomplished this before the end of this year. So basically this is it. These 30 something bills, I would imagine, are kind of So the legislative session, the way it works, New York is a part-time legislature, so they convene for the first part of the year. Usually they convene January through June-ish. And this year was an unusual session because it was very front-loaded. Most of the session days were in the beginning couple of months so that legislators had more time to campaign and stuff ahead of the June 23rd primary, which, as most of you know, also has been kind of altered a little bit. But the coronavirus pandemic basically shut down everything. And there were a couple of legislators who had contracted the coronavirus. And aside from the state budget, all the session days that were supposed to take place in April and most of May were just canceled. And legislators have obviously been very, very busy in their districts, helping constituents, that sort of thing. So now this is kind of their big return. And they're considering more than 24 coronavirus bills, some of those things that I mentioned. There's an emergency loan program. Another one would allow pharmacists to give vaccines once there's one that is approved. A bunch of that